Okay, asante sana. Thank you so much. Asante sana wapendwa for such a wonderful time that the Almighty God has given unto us. Am I loud and clear? Am I audible enough?
Yes, brother. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I happen we thank God for this chance and for such a wonderful time that He has given us, giving us peace, giving us good health, that we may learn His will and most importantly, how to please Him. I'm also grateful for you guys for creating your time so that we may sharpen one another, we may learn and help one another to grow. At this particular time, I just want to introduce the topic of the day since we have already prayed. I happened to speak with Brother Isaac, who is also one of the original medicine practitioner, and he told me that yesterday, because of the limited time, you went to look at the original diet. Well, I'm tackling nutrition and pathophysiology of diseases. So I want to make a step further from what we had laid a foundation from. Those who can remember who attended the day before yesterday, you can well recall how we tried to trace every disease from a deficiency of something, and that something or the missing link in 97% of the cases it is the mineral. Mineral deficiency is the main cause of the disease. As a matter of fact, if I had time, I will lay a better theory, let me call it a theory, as to associate that there's one disease, but maybe you can lay it for another day or we can discuss it later. Allow me to just remind you or do a recap. Last time we dived and saw that God made man perfect. Man was taken from out of the dust of the earth. And so the body which I have and you have, which in the book of Job chapter 4 verse number 19, he refers it as an house of clay. The bodies we have the same minerals as those which are in the earth. I mean an unadulterated earth or ground. That's why earthing is so important. That's just a tip. When I say earthing or grounding, I mean walking barefooted on ground, especially when it is muddy, maybe at your garden, leave alone that way. So we realize that human body has or requires around 92 minerals, and the greatest sources of mineral was in the soil, and the other contemporary source of mineral was the seawater. That is the pure seawater or the seawater as it is bulky and refined seawater. We also learned about why we need to take good salt, beginning with Celtic salt, Himalayan salt, maybe sea salt, and we realized that sodium chloride or the table salt is not really healthy for us. We talked a lot, we discussed diseases later, and we really tried to relate when Linus Pauling was trying to say that any disease can be traced to the lack of minerals. We're trying to look at hypocrites saying eat food like a medicine, and I think that can be a good recap for us and it can remind us something that we really trying to talk about. Now today's topic, I want to talk about the protein. And while talking about the protein, since yesterday you dealt about the Gon's plan or Gon's original diet for man, I won't lay more emphasis. I want to believe and trust it was so clear and you all understood. I want to talk about protein and a little bit of cholesterol. Protein and cholesterol. Friends, before I talk about protein and cholesterol in relation to the diseases that we have, allow me say that the word disease also means this is absence. Absence. For example, when I talk of discomfort, I mean absence of comfort. When I mean disunity, I'm simply meaning lack of or absence of unity. So when we talk of disease, we are simply talking lack of ease, absence of easiness in whichever the body system we could be having. Before I dive into protein, I want just to remind you something very interesting that the next day we shall closer look at it. The building block of anybody, the building block of anybody, of any living organism, it is the cell. And as for human body, we begin with the cell, and many related cells form tissue. Many related or co-working tissues form an organ. Related organs or co-working organs form an organ system. And then the organ systems form a living organism, or rather a body, a living me and living you. So as we shall be addressing different issues, different diseases, how they come into place, how they develop, how they affect us, we shall later, which I think could be the most important session that no one need to miss. It may be tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. Let me not talk about it before time really comes. So let's look at the proteins. And friends, when we read the Bible, that is the book of Genesis, chapter number 1, verse number 29, which I believe maybe you read yesterday. It says, and God gave man, let me just read it and then read Genesis 3, verse number 18, and dive into the topic, looking at the scientific facts and the things that really the God of this world has closed eyes lest people see and know the truth. When we read Genesis 1, verse number 29, my Bible says, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree, in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. Whatever God is trying to say here is that I've given you all seed bearing herbs and all fruits that have seeds in them. That automatically disqualifies the seedless fruits. May they be oranges, whichever the fruit that is seedless. God never gave it as the original diet for man. It was the first diet given to man before he did do sin. Interestingly, our very loving and caring God, who is also too wise to err or to make a mistake and too careful to miss, that was enough to sustain man, and not only man, but to sustain the whole creation of animals, including the lion. After the fall of man, God gave another diet, and that is Genesis chapter 3, verse number 18, where it says, thorns and thistles shall it bring forth, and thou shalt eat the food of the earth, the herb of the field. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. Another diet is introduced, herbs, simply vegetables. Some translation will use the word vegetables. So God has provided another meal, another diet for man. We'll come to realize and appreciate this when we come to scientific facts. And finally, the last diet given to man, it is, remember, in the book of Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2, it's a replica. It's the best way version of explaining a perfect world without disease, a perfect world without sin. So in a perfect world without sin, a perfect world without disease, God had given the original diet which you studied yesterday. It also goes hand in hand with Revelation chapter 21 and chapter 22. A new world, a new earth without disease, without a sin, without a glimpse of anything, without any indication of suffering. So I doesn't want to dwell so much on biblical standpoint. I want to expound this knowledge that God has given us in the scientific lenses. Because in the book of First Thessalonians chapter 5 verse number 21 it says, prove all things, own first that which is good. So I want us to prove if really God was right. Uh, do we need to earn something? Because the other that given to man was given to Noah. That is Genesis chapter 9. Genesis chapter 2, sins and the fruits that have sins. Chapter 3, vegetables. Chapter 4, no food added. Chapter 5, no food added. Chapter 6, no food added. Chapter 7, no food added. Chapter 6, sin begins to get into the world. Chapter 7 and chapter 8, destruction of the world by flood. Chapter 9, God gives another meal. That is flesh, but he gives strict conditions onto how this food should be taken. Maybe before I get too scientific, allow me read one quotation that should really ring so deep into our minds. If we can't get any other quotation or anything else as a religious people, just let's get this. When we read the book CCH, Counsels to the Church, pages 228, paragraph number 2. You can begin from paragraph number 1 for a deeper and clear understanding. But for this case, I'll just read paragraph number 2. It's a very interesting quotation. God gave man flesh with a lot of instructions, with a lot of restrictions, because God knew something. But now let's listen. Why did God give man to eat flesh as his meal? Yet he never gave him while he was in pure, holy state, sinless state. This is what is the pen of inspiration has to say. After the flood, the people ate largely of the animal food. God saw that the ways of man were corrupt, and that he was disposed to exalt himself proudly against his Creator and to follow the inclinations of his own heart. So after the flood, people began taking animal foods, and God saw that man had become much and much more polluted. So God could see and could really realize something is wrong with man, and that man is aimed or is he wants to exalt himself proudly against his maker. So what did God react, or what did God do? Inspiration continues to say, and he permitted that long-lived race to eat animal food to shorten their sinful lives. Let me repeat. And he allowed that long-lived race to eat animal food to shorten their sinful lives. Let's pause for a moment. So God brought, should I say the population agenda? No, maybe it will sound bad. But God brought some mechanism to limit man. He didn't want man to live so long, so many years, while he is a sinner. So he decided to give that race to eat animal food so as he can shorten their lives. Simply it means those who take flesh, they are indeed trying to shorten their lives, or flesh should be used for those who want to die fast. If you are tired of living, you shouldn't take flesh. In fact, if you read the book of Isaiah chapter 22 verse number 12 and verse number 13, it has the same very foundation. I doesn't want to go there because of time, and there's a lot that we have to discuss. In fact, the last statement from that quotation says, soon after the flood, the race began to rapidly decrease in size and in length of years. I don't know how you understand that, but this inspiration, it's so holy from a prophet, just as Ezekiel was, just as Moses was. Think about that. I know I could be having some friends who really are not Adventist, and we really love you and we like you. You know, this message will also go and reach some people who are not believers. So let's look onto the other side of the coin, which really is quite important, especially in this generation that we're living in. When I talk of protein and when the word protein is mentioned, to so many people, they will just think of, mostly, they think of flesh, they think of eggs, they think of milk. But now a question remains: God never gave man to take flesh in his sinless state. God never gave man to take eggs in his sinless state. So when we talk of proteins, what are we exactly talking about? What are we exactly talking about? This is the very first and the most interesting thing. So I want to welcome fellow friends who have already joined. When you hear protein, what is protein? Someone just two, three people to tell me what is protein. What is protein? When you have protein, what is this protein? What is protein? And whoever will be answering, I want someone to tell me which is the major component of protein, or what separates protein from carbohydrates, from vitamins, from minerals, and all other categories of food. Yes, if someone can give a try, if someone can give a shot, it doesn't have to be very right. It's just a try. I want to see someone who is following, someone who is listening, someone who wants to try. What is protein? And what's the major composition of
Let,
protein, or what differentiates protein with other food groups? Yes, thank you. Welcome.
let me try.
Okay, give a try.
Protein is body building foods.
Protein.
Body building foods.
Protein is in foods.
Body. They build the body
Bodybuilding foods. Wow, great,
foods.
great. Yes.
There are two types: animals and vegetables.
Okay, or plant-based.
Mm.
Thank you so much, user 54.
That's all I knew.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I can also see Anyango here is typing protein is a bodybuilding food. Thank you so much. Someone else who can give a try. User 54, next time please update your name so that we can mention you with your name. It feels good to mention, to call someone out with his or her name. Yes, is there anyone else who want to give a try? Okay, thank you. I don't know, should I begin where I should really pick from, but let me just lay this simple statement. Anyone who is a biochemistry student will agree with me that protein and other food groups differ in one major component, that is nitrogen. So when you go to look at the chemical bonds of different starch or carbohydrates, when you go to look at the chemical composition, the chemical bonds of vitamins, of minerals, and so many, you will come to realize that protein is so rich with an element, that is nitrogen, that differentiates it from all other food groups. This is very interesting. Very, very interesting. I think it's a point that everyone needs to know that. So if I was to say something, I could say, if we want to get the most and the abundant protein, we should focus and where there's abundance nitrogen. Let me repeat my point. If you want the most protein, the best protein, we should focus where there's so much nitrogen. Thank you so much. Someone is writing proteins are molecules made of amino acids. This is very true. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Thank you so much, Brother David. That's very true. Now I have a question. Where do we have the most nitrogen? Where can we get the most nitrogen? Afraid to try. Give a try. Give a shot. If there's someone by the name Ariet or Yugi here, you should answer that question, or you should hold your mouth. Maybe, or maybe, yeah, there are some friends who we might have interacted at some point, explaining some point, maybe the cause of some diseases. If there's a friend by the name Ross Adams, Yeah, there's some friends whom I know you have talked to discuss some issues, especially talking about changing diets and the stuff. Anyway, anyone can give a try. Where do we get the most nitrogen? Yes, in legumes, plants like beans. Thank you, Anyango. Beans and grains. Who is this TBSO? TBSO. Kindly write your name. I want to mention you by your name. I've seen this name earlier. Atmosphere. Okay, interesting. Anyone else want to see all the charts? TBSO. What's your name? Okay, okay. Well, it's interesting. Thank you so much. You are all right. Everyone is right. It depends on which perspective are we looking at. Yes, someone wants to talk. Is the host ready to talk or? Oh, TBS. So it's Harit. Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw you last time. No wonder. Thank you. Welcome so much, Harit. It's Harit. Well, interesting. Allow me say this. You remember in primary school, we came across about gases. We could read about water as a topic. We could read about soil. So we could read about sand soil, loam soil, clay soil, their properties. We could read about water. We could read about air. If you cannot remember that. So the most nitrogen is found at the atmosphere. In fact, if you're a student and you attended last time, this was supposed to be easy unto you because we learned about nitrogen oxide, which I spoke about its working mechanism being used in some drugs such as sodium nitroprusside, (NP) for the cardiac arrest patient, for those people experiencing severe hypertension. You will remember, at least I mentioned something, that their working mechanism or mode of action is just like Viagra, such stuff. So next time, let's try to connect. Uh, you will come to realize when we talk about air, the atmosphere has different composition of different air. Let's not go so much into the specifics, but we can talk about the general knowledge. Uh, Welcome, Beryl and others. I'm just mentioning those who maybe know. We'll come to realize that the atmosphere is made up of 70-80% of nitrogen, 21, I don't know, 0.3 or 4, point what percent of oxygen, 0.3% of carbon dioxide, and the other remaining percent of inert gases. If you can remember, if you can really remember. Now, this is the interesting part. Welcome to those who are continuing to join us. In the atmosphere, we have so much nitrogen. So much nitrogen. In a brief, because I love taking a level up, we'll come to realize that there are processes that occur in the atmosphere, some which are data, some which are lightnings, that are God's working hands, or they are mechanisms placed there by God to make sure that this nitrogen that is abundance in air, it's thrown down to the ground. That's why I was talking about the grounding, walking barefooted in your garden or in your garden. You will also come to realize in most of the times there are thunderstorms and lightnings either at night or when there's little light. I don't know how I should put it this clear. Okay, no, it must be new to some people, but this is the truth. In most of the times, there are thunderstorms and lightnings, mostly either at night or when there's no sun, in most of the cases. Of course, there's a science behind it, and it's not for this class, because if I get into that, it may bring so many questions. But simply, it's a process of getting this nitrogen to the soil. And when this nitrogen gets into the soil, those who can remember the simple science we learned is that there's a process that you call nitrogen fixation, whereby the legumes, now I want to agree with Anyango and the rest who are saying about beans and grains, Butterson, I don't know, please forgive me for mispronouncing your name, Anyango, Batsan, and everyone who was talking about beans. So all the legumes have taproots which do have root nodules, whereby the nitrogen fixation takes place in the root nodules through the process of nitrogen fixation by an enzyme that we call nitrogen fixing bacteria or microorganisms. I'm sorry for talking so much or maybe using some words, but I hope I can be understood. Someone, user 54, you seem to have something to say. Okay, thank you. I want to make this easy for every one of us. And I want it to be so simple for us to understand. If you have not understood before, just get this point. Too much of protein, or the very, very needed amount of protein, the very unadulterated and altered protein can be found in the legumes. Why? They have taproots, they have root nodules. There's a process that occurs in the root nodules that is called nitrogen fixation through nitrogen fixing bacteria, and for that reason they have the most protein, since we saw the protein, the differentiating component or element to be specific between protein and carbohydrates and other food groups. It's because of the nitrogen board in the chemical composition, in the chemical formula. So simply whatever I'm trying to say is that we have abundance, enough protein in our grains. As a matter of fact, some grains like soy or soya, it has the best protein and in the highest amount. However, because the world we live, it's controlled by some people, which is not a topic of the day, but we'll hear about the Gates and Melida Foundation, who are doing the seed patenting. In other words, they are trying to make sure that there are no indigenous seeds. That's why when you plant maize today in your shamba from maybe you bought your seeds from the so-called authorized dealers, you can't replant the same and expect it to yield anything. You can't expect to harvest anything. If the indigenous could grow and grow and grow, you could replant them. So there's a lot of science, there's a lot of reasons why they're doing such things. But my point is, we have a lot of and enough abundant protein in the plant-based foods, especially or more specifically the legumes. Allow me correct a statement that it's a popular belief, and then we dive into the animal proteins, whereby we shall also look at something like cholesterol. Uh, there's a statement that says a balanced diet should have carbohydrates, should have vitamins, should have protein. I want to say, as per se, that could be true, but to the application of how the Kenyans and most of the people do it, that's a lie. Let me explain it then and get into the animal protein. When you look at the ingredients and the composition of, let's say, maize flour, I'm talking of the kangata or the maize flour that has not been removed, has not gone for, I don't know, peeling. I don't know the right one to use. Allow me to switch off my video. Seems the lights. Yes, I'm talking of such maize flour or that maize. It has protein. No, I want it switch off. No, let me just put it this way. Okay, good. Thank you. So we are speaking of proteins. There's proteins in maize. There's proteins in your spinach. There's protein in spirulina. In fact, spirulina has one of the highest and best proteins. Protein is so important into our bodies since it repairs our worn out body tissues. Amino acids repair the cell membranes. They repair almost everything. They are responsible for our hormone formation, although the major composition is from cholesterol. But proteins repair every damaged cell, every damaged tissue. So protein are really important into our lives. Maybe I should have begun by highlighting that. Proteins are so much important unto our lives. Very, very important. And now the problem is the protein education is not given to people. Why am I saying so? An adult needs approximately 46 to 56 grams of protein every day. I want to repeat that. An adult or human beings needs approximately 46 to 56 grams every day. To be more specific, to help each and every one of us, you multiply your kilograms times 0.8 grams. That's the amount of protein you need. So, for example, someone with 68 kgs, multiplying it by 0.8 grams, you will get to realize you need around 54 grams of protein per day. Now, I get to question, I'm disturbed when we talk of someone taking a quarter kg of flesh, of meat, for lunch, for dinner, for a treat. I'm disturbed when someone takes 2 eggs, 3 eggs in the morning for breakfast or for dinner. A friend of mine, who I will not mention name, is in a weight loss program, and she told me one day that some people can take 5 eggs and even more for protein. I just don't understand. Which science is this? Which knowledge is this? Because we are living in a world where we need to question everything. Well, as I give you time to think, just try to think about it. So, now this is the point. When you take plant-based protein, even if you take seemingly excess, seemingly more than it's required by the body, you have an advantage in that the food you take, it has fiber. And the fiber holds, protects, delays the digestion and absorption of that protein. So the body is able to take the needed amount of protein and leave the rest to go into waste. Unlike for someone who takes eggs, someone who drinks milk in the name of getting calcium and protein, someone who takes flesh in the name of getting protein, there's no fiber. So there's no limiting factors. There's nothing to put kind of limit to how much should be digested, how much should be absorbed. Now, this one of the shocking things that people and doctors won't tell you. If you take too much protein, you get your body into a problem. I will explain some of the problems that we get when we take animal foods. But allow me re-echo the pen of inspiration from the book Counsels to the Church, pages 228, paragraph number 2, which we read previously. It says, after the flood, the people ate largely of animal food. God permitted that long-lived race to eat the animal food to shorten their sinful lives. It's in nature, friends, scientifically, historically, whichever the perspective we want to look into it. A lion that lives to the fullest the longest living lion, at least in Kenya. Let me limit my scope of reading, though I read books, a lot of books, even from other continents. So a lion that has lived longest in Africa, the life expectation of a lion is 25 years. That's a carnivora. The life expectation of the life expectation of an antelope is 50 years. Lion lives between 20 and 25 years. Antelope lives between 40 and 50 years. That's just an example. I don't want to talk about an elephant that lives more than 60 years. We can deduce that all animals in nature that feed on the original diet, on the herbs, they live longer than the animals that feed on flesh. Study has been conducted. Read the book The China Study by Collins Campbell. He will tell you about China, the people who used to, the Buddhist, people who doesn't take flesh, comparing with the civilized part of the China who lives in the cities. Come to Kenya, a locally man, go do a research on the Maasais and at least the Kikuyus who are not used to maybe taking flesh. Not only Kikuyus, but this is an example from a study done by Dr. Karanja and other doctors have published this. Maasais have a very, very fierce group of youths who are called Moran, which begins from the ages of 20 to around 30, but mostly around 25 years. These people are so strong, so fierce, very brave. But go and follow their history when they age from 40 to 50 years. They drastically, in a very surprising way, they get so weak, they get very old, and they die very early. I have a gentleman who is afraid. He is now around 81 years. He is a friend of mine. This gentleman, you can't compete with him, even in swimming. We have been to Malidi some days, even in walking. And one of the secret, he doesn't take sugar, he doesn't take flesh. Anyway, I'm not here to give you testimonies. I'm here to talk something. It is Collins Campbell. Someone has said China study by Collins Champagne. This kind of wine. What is this? Collins Campbell, Dr. Collins Campbell. Thank you. So, friends, I want to lay for the next. I can see I've taken around that 7 minutes. So I doesn't want to take so long. Maybe I may exceed with some minutes, but I want to give you time to ask questions. So, friends, we can talk of it that when we take animal flesh, number one, it has no fiber. Thus, it compromises the gut health. Number two, it is digested and absorbed more than it's needed, thus bringing toxins. I'll talk about purines. I won't talk about cadaverines. I won't talk about idol and other things that cause allergies, but I'll just do an overview of the same. So let's look at what happens when we take too much. Now we are at a point where now we are relating the nutrition. We are now relating the nutrition and the diseases. Be keen here. Be very keen, because this our aim of this class or of this study of this session. So when you take flesh, one of the very things that happen when it's digested, let's say it's absorbed, of which a lot happens more than just absorption. Taking too much flesh is directly linked to compromised renal health. Let me talk. When I talk renal, I mean I may talk of urinary system, or to be more specific, the kidneys. Every single patient I've seen, I've had more than 10 patients who are suffering from kidneys. They were great meat eaters, great flesh eaters. Why? The meat they eat, it releases its byproduct. Number one on the list, it's uric acid. Number two on the list, is phosphorus, excess of it. Number 3 on the list, but those are the major. Of course, the ammonia and everything. But then we'll come to realize for us to have kidney stones forming anywhere, leave alone even kidney stone, any stone forming anywhere in the body, there must be composition of these things. So when kidney tries to filter, the uric acid meets with phosphorus, which meets with the calcium, and calcium is like a cement. When you read the book The Calcium Lie by Dr. Robert Thompson, he explains this so deeply and in a very astonishing way. I recommend you guys to go and get that book. If you can't get it, a hand copy, kindly text me on WhatsApp. I will send you a soft copy. This applies to most of the books that I mention here. So he explains how calcium is like a concrete in the book Calcium Lie, and he questions why do people get recommended by their doctors to take calcium supplements. Anyway, some things never make sense, but let's just hold that. My point is where there's calcium, where there's uric acid and phosphorus, kidney stones are inevitable. Kidney toxification is inevitable. So as we see the rising cases of kidney issues, we can directly link it to too much intake of protein into our bodies. And in this case, we majorly mean taking the animal protein, taking the flesh, the eggs mostly. That's the first thing. There are things we call purines, especially endogenous purines. These purines, it's simply toxins that we get from anything we take. But when we talk of endogenous, mostly we talk which we get from animals specifically. They have the highest purines. When we take it, which later, if we were to classify, we will get deeper to talk of idol, cadaverins. But simply a simple statement, I will say the purines cause allergic reaction into our bodies. How? By stimulating the histamine hormone, which is the hormone responsible for almost any allergic reaction. And that's why even today, as we start here, we have seen people with protein allergy. I've not met someone with carbohydrate allergy. Have you met one? Protein allergy. Protein allergy. Okay, thank you. I thought someone wanted to say something. The other thing that I want to talk about, flesh, eggs, animal products. They never come alone. They come accompanied by their fats. For example, an egg is made up of the yolk and the outer, the white-like egg, which is simply mucus. I don't want to talk about mucus. This is standard. It can be so great. It can go to greater lengths which we are not capable of in this scope of study, especially in this platform and here. But simply, the flesh come with some fats, and second, they come with some hormones. Let me say this statement without fear of any contradiction. No lady should ever have cramps whatsoever on earth. No lady was created to have cramps, pains during the menstrual period. But should we link where the problem began? They took one of the major reason why so many people are suffering from cramps. It's because they take animal flesh or they take animal protein. Why? It comes with the packed hormones. If I should post a video to you to explain to you or give an explanation on how animals are injecting growth hormones and so many hormones, how the big pharma and the agrovets have majored in pumping drugs to different animals so that they can grow meat, so that they can produce more milk. You simply ingest these hormones whenever you take animal protein. Let me talk of something else. When you talk of cholesterol, flesh do have the bad cholesterol which we call low density lipoprotein. We do have a good cholesterol which we call it high density lipoprotein. The liver produces around 80% of the cholesterol needed in the body. Cholesterol is very, very significant to our body. It's very crucial. we only need to take 20% from foods. But when you take from animal products, we do have the LDL, low density lipoprotein, they call it the bad cholesterol, which affects our bodies. Friends, I want to put my submission as I want to conclude. Diseases like kidney stones or any kidney disease, any diabetic disease, any hypertension disease, any allergic disease whatsoever, any asthmatic disease, and most of the diseases, tuberculosis not excluded, they can all be linked, they can all be traced by the confused diet which we have given unto our bodies, making our bodies to be confused, to have autoimmune diseases. You see, whenever a doctor tells you it's an autoimmune condition, he's simply trying to tell you, I don't know anything. It just came and I can't help you. It can never be fixed. That's whatever he's trying to say in another language. Lupus and allergy, it's quite broad. So, friends, I call upon your attention. I call upon your reasoning to go deeper into this subject of protein and really appreciate and know why God really tells us to take of animal proteins. God bless you. Thank you for your time. As usual, I do take 40 minutes, but today I've taken 46 and some few seconds. I want to welcome questions, contributions, anyone who wants a clarification so that you can end this session and go to bed early. Thank you.
Thank you, our teacher Collins, for mafunzo mazuri. Kuna swali lilikuwa limeulizwa pale juu kabla mengine hajaja. Kuna huyu ndugu Nyandika alikuwa ameuliza, does the body need animal protein?
Okay, thank you. I can answer that. The human body, doesn't need any slightest type of animal protein, or rather flesh or any animal protein. Just allow me to say something. Some people do argue the point that we need vitamin B12 that can only be found in animals. That's a lie. Reason being, B12, it's produced by our bodies, especially in our mouth. That's why we should, when we wake up or when rise in the morning, you should drink some warm water, take your meal, then brush your teeth. A second thing, B12 can be found in mung beans bean, sprouts, and the sprouts of almost any other grain, especially these mosins. Finally, we have something we call heterohepatic nerve, heterohepatic circulation. Let me talk about circulation. Whereby if you have B12 deficiency, for you to realize, you need to take at least 8 to 12 years before it really affects you, which it's not possible for you to have a deficiency or to take that long time without having encountered some sprout or having B12 made in your mouth enough for us. Unless there's another argument, but I've just tried to go ahead so as to answer even the question of that may not have been asked yet. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you, brother. Kwa wale ambao tumekuwa tukisikiza, kunaye ambaye ana swali. Kama uko na swali, wale mko hapa juu mnaweza unmute your mic, na wale ambao wako chini mnaweza tuwekea kwa comment ili tuweze kujibu maswali. Okay, karibuni. Naona sister ametoa ameunmute. Karibu sister.
Okay, asante. Mi niko na swali daktari. Kuna msee mwingine wa kanisa hakuwa anakula nyama, lakini alipoenda hospitali akaambiwa ati lazima aanze kula nyama chumili, umekosa nyama. Saa mtu kama hiyo tutasema aje?
Thank you so much. That's a really good and sincere question and a good concern. I must say, when you read the spirit of prophecy at unbalanced state, it clearly says you should not remove any nutrient without providing its supplement. So for such a person, I would just do simple things, which number one could be maybe buy him or her some chia seeds and flax seeds to grind maybe in the smoothies or elsewhere it means for omega-3 and good protein. Number three, I could recommend him to take soya chunks. So much rich in protein than any other source of protein. Soya chunks, maybe you can do soya eggs. We do have soya eggs, we do have soya meat, we do have soya meat and soya milk. Soy, it's so rich. And if it's an urgent and there's no any other source of protein around, I could recommend him or her to take spirulina. It's packed with most proteins, and in this case, I mean it is also packed with the B complex vitamins. So, most likely, he stopped taking meat. He only used maybe some grains, maybe some beans, but limited variety, and maybe not enough. Perhaps he never replaced what he lost when he left meat. Thank you. When I say that, let me say and make myself clear. This is my 11th year without tasting, without taking meat, and my health has greatly improved. I've even overcome most of the illnesses that I used to suffer before. I took a step to decide not to take. I know some friends who do not take meat and who have stayed so long, even longer than I. And again, our God created us that way. He can never be wrong. Thank you.
Pia mi niliacha hizo animal product. Saa nianze kukula nini?
List and some of the things: soya meat, soya eggs, soya milk. I've spoken of spirulina if you need it.
Daktari wanasema soya ni mbaya.
Now that brings us to another question. I said we have to question and investigate everything we hear. So how do they say that soya is bad? I doesn't want you to answer the what I've heard, but just I want to hear from you. How is soya bad?
Wanasema ya
Wanasema
kwamba hii soya inaathiri wanaume kizazi chao.
Thank you so much. This really interactive session. There are most of the claims that people do put, they are not scientific. Well, some are. I have to acknowledge that in some way soya can be harmful, but this is the case where soya can be harmful. Number one, soya, which now, okay, I think this will tackle deep when we do have training sessions where I do train medical missionary students. I and my fellow two doctors, we do train medical missionary students. We do train original medicine practitioners. So we do dive deep into these. But just a simple summary of the same. Soya is the best land cleaner. So whenever you have bought a piece of land, they have been using fertilizers, chemicals, and you want to clean it, you can use soya to wipe those chemicals. So the question should maybe be, if you want to prepare yours locally, where do you get it from? Was it used to clean the shamba, or where was it grown? That's the first question. The second thing, okay, you doesn't know where it was grown. How do you prepare it? For example, if you want to prepare soy for drink, the first step you should soak it for at least 8 hours, best 24 hours. You should boil it. You remove all I don't know why is this name getting out of me. The ngozi, we call it not, yeah, I don't know whether, who can give me these things? You remember we were in primary, we could read about tester, what CD code. Let me talk of CD code. you remove it, then you can now karanga it or roast it. That's the first thing. The second thing, any food that is taken more than it's really needed or required, it must have some kind of implication in the system, not only soy, but almost everything. But as the rule and golden rule that we do teach our patient, regardless of something good it is, if you feel it doesn't take you good, then reduce it. But generally, it is not as much as they claim. And I don't know why the good things that really are, they mostly have so many questions that people try to bring them without good scientific evidence. I must say, when any protein is taken into excess, it has some implications into the system. But if you can use anything temporarily, especially the good, not anything, the good given foods, it really has no side effect.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you brother. Kuna swali lingine hapa limeuliza kwamba pia maziwa tunapaswa kuacha kabisa.
It is the worst.
Well, a good question. I don't know from which standpoint is the brother asking, if it's Jeff or who, because there could be so many standpoints, maybe at a religious point of view, but let me address the health point of view. As a naturopath, I really recommend anyone who wants good health should totally abstain from milk. Reason being, milk, they form something we call cream. That's what's used to make I don't know what cheese and what butter and the stuff. This increases the mucus into our bodies. And mucus is the first reaction sign whenever the body has been invaded by pathogens, as well as the best habitat for any pathogenic organisms. So, for example, if you doesn't stop taking milk, you can be sure in case you get a disease like asthma, regardless of where you are taken to, regardless of any treatment you may receive, you can't really recover. I don't want to go into details how milk is digested and how it harms us. But maybe I should ask this person and just answer him with a question. Which other species, because in the book of Job chapter 12 verse number 7, God says, go learn from the beast and the animals will teach you. Which other species of life do breastfeed, do take milk after the breastfeeding period is done? Which other species on the planet that do take milk or breastfeed from another species? For example, no goat do breastfeed from a donkey. No cow can breastfeed from a cat because God created it that way. There's a lot of things that we can talk about what's the composition of milk. Things to do hexanoic acid, things to do with casein maybe in the animal milk and how it affects us. But if you read the book The China Study, perhaps you might have a better and a clear understanding how really milk affects us. But arthritis and so many issues, so many diseases will never get out of your house, out of your body, if you really do take milk. So you can choose from a health standpoint. God bless you.
Thank you brother. Another question wanauliza hapa, are we supposed to buy the grounded soya?
That's a good question. Whatever I'm advocating for, you will also come to realize I'm not only talking about you getting the ungrounded, but also knowing where it has been grown, which is a long process. So my point will be, if possible, get the ungrounded and prepare, if possible. If not possible, take the ones you have. But more or best, more better or much better, it is if you can grow them at your own garden and prepare them. because in such case you are sure from the very source. Yes, thank you.
Yes, alafu
Alafu wengine
okay, auliza sister.
nilikuwa nasema, wengine wanasema ati sawa milk sio mbaya, hati ni dawa.
Soya milk,
Sawa
milk.
fermented milk.
Wengine ni kina nani? I should ask that because you see, friends.
Sikuna daktari ni wengi.
Now listen unto me this way. It's true that if there's any field that can have so much misinformation is this field that we are here in the health, because some will even come and say Mursik is really good because you come from a community where does that. And my point is, when you take soy milk or fermented milk, it's indeed true it has probiotics, but you have to look at the pros and cons. What are the advantages and disadvantages of taking the same? You will come to realize that anything fermented should never actually get into our bodies. I want to repeat that because so many people are talking about sauerkraut, fermented cabbages, and so many things. It should be used on the extreme ends where there's no any other option. So when you take fermented, anything fermented, it should tell you you are taking something that is alcoholic into your system. So can you take alcohol into your system and expect it to do you good? In fact, it affects the gut. It really affects the gut. The probiotics will get into the system, yes, but it will bring a lot of imbalances. If you want to prove if it's really good or bad, get a patient, for example, suffering from any infections, mostly urinary tract infections, UTI, which I've done that experiment. If he or she does try to take anything fermented, the pains, the symptoms, the severity of the problem increases. The severity of the problem increases. Not once, not twice. I've warned people not to take sugar, not to take anything fermented, may it be soy milk, may it be fermented porridge. But whenever they have dared, they have always contacted me to ask me, why is it getting worse? And that has been the reason. The other thing is that it
Okay.
increases the pH, the acidity. It lowers the pH, rather increases the acidity in the body, which compromises the immunity. I don't see any reason why anyone should take anything fermented, leave alone the milk. But I'm saying this so that you can go and do your own research. And as you do your own research, maybe you should also have a question: who funded the research that was being brought to you? Because today you can see every day Royco being advertised on our TVs. Royco Cubes, Royco Mix. You can see them advertising Kafagara on our TVs. You can see them advertising Coca-Cola, which is undeadly poison, on our TVs. So where you get the information greatly matters. Because if you get it from the wrong source, you can be sure it will be wrong. The Bible, the spirit of prophecy, forms the best and the purest basis of our research. And above all, those people of the old, people who did independent studies, people who have been even ignored and censored by the system, they most of the times have a truth that cannot be borne by the system. So sorry for speaking so much, but it's because of this misinformation that really do disturb me when I see how we are at times deluded, how at times we miss the mark simply because we got information and we never knew which is the right, which is the wrong, where can we act. God bless you. I can see people have written so many comments, but brother, you are leading me, brother David. Continue. Tell me what next and try also to see how we can end this session earlier so that you can rest.
Okay, thank you. I think what's the importance of probiotics in the digestive system? I think I can answer that.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we should ask ourselves what are probiotics first before we see the importance. Probiotics, in the word, they do denote it to be good bacteria. What is the function? When you take good bacteria, it should lower the bad bacteria, thus balancing and giving health to the gut mostly. But the issue comes, these probiotics, they are best when they are produced, they are made from the gut, from the system itself, not taken from an outside source and taken ingested into the system. They should chase away, they should balance, they should reduce the bad bacteria. But the issue comes, where have they been prepared from? How do we take them? How will the system respond to them? So the best probiotics, they are those that are made in our own bodies. Yes, maybe I shouldn't talk of that and end there.
Okay, asante mwalimu. Niko na swali pia mimi. Kuna watu wakikula maragi exhaust inafunguka bana, shida inakuwa nini?
The issue is not about, well, there are two main issues. Number one, it's a simple process that if you are lucky or you are lucky to attend the, okay, leave alone being lucky or what. Well, if you read book 3 of biology, at least Kenyan syllabus, they talk of something, we talk of seed dormancy, if you can remember that. There are mechanisms that God has put in place in different grains in order to make them live longer, such that a grain can stay 5 years and still plant it and it germinates, it grows. So the coat of beans mostly has been made so hard. So the best thing is you do soak it for at least 8 hours, and this should be to all grains for the best health. You should soak it for at least 8 hours. When you do that, you activate its life in it. You remove the gas, you remove the acidity to some levels. Then you can cook. And if you want to be very sure, you can use carrots, cook with them, at least 2 pieces or 3, depending on the meal you're preparing. When it boils, when it's ready, take the carrots and throw them away. Then do that meal. No one will have gas, no one will have GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disorders, everything will be sorted. So sometimes it's because of the grain itself, the beans themselves, how they were prepared. The other reason it could be the messed gut that people do have, compromised gastroesophageal or gastrointestinal tract. So you repair the gut, you change the way you prepare your meal, that's fixed forever. And anyone who has ever come to my place, there's no food that I prepare you can't eat. If you come and tell me I don't eat beans, I just tell you take them for today and just taste them. I'll bear the consequence. If you can trust me or trust me, just take them. And no one has ever complained because of how I prepare. I believe everyone can do that, just as I've stated.
Thank you.
Kuna
Eh, kuna
kuna swali limeulizwa hapa chini ambayo nisingependa tuisahau. Ameuliza TBSO, people aren't taking skuma and beans claiming they cause them ulcers. Is this really true?
Oh, thank you. I think this can be the last question, please. Maybe we can talk of other questions later. TBSO, Sister Harriet, I suppose. That's a lie. Skuma, beans, and no any other food that God has given naturally that can cause ulcers. What happens is that you already have ulcers. So these foods, they react differently or they react in certain ways when you already have ulcers. So the issue is not the foods majorly, but the gut. Simply what happens is, for example, if you get to touch cayenne pepper or salt, you will never feel any sensation or you will never feel any pain or, yeah, let me say any pain or, but should you touch the salt with a wood, it will be so painful. So the issue is not the salt, but the wood on your hand. So people should fix ulcer problem and no food that you can't take. especially that which God has given in plenty, in abundance in nature. So we do have medications for ulcers, for H. pylori, for different conditions. You can reach out maybe for some programs, maybe for the medications and so on. If I'm allowed, we can end this session here. I just want to believe that we have learned something.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for your time and also for teaching as well. We do appreciate. Najua maswali bado yapo, but mengine tutajibu kesho. Naona muda hauruhusu, na pia ni afya inasema kwamba ni vizuri tunapolala pia tulale mapema ili miili zetu pia ziweze kujijenga. Kando na kula, pia kupumzika ni jambo la muhimu pia. Kwa hivyo kama kawaida tutarejelea katika upande wa maombi, na Sister Doreen, kama uko in a good position utuelekeze.